Become a patron at www.patreon.com/Golden Era Bookworm for hard to find books, scans of rare photos, and articles on the golden era of bodybuilding.
Hi everybody, Golden Era Bookworm here, and today I would like to share my experience with Vince Gironda's 10x10 routine and maintenance diet. Back in 2017, I decided to put on some muscle mass after a year of recovering from surgery from a right pectoral tendon tear, and well, these images quickly tell you how incredibly effective this program is. Vince Gironda claimed that the 10x10 routine could stimulate some serious hypertrophy, and for those that have dared to try it, well, you would have reaped the benefits as I have by using such a program. The before image of me is from December of 2016 after my surgery. I had torn my right pectoral tendon. I've talked about this in the past. And the after photo was taken back around December 2017, basically a year after. You can see how much muscle I put on, especially on the chest and arms as I'm hitting this classic old school side chest pose. I remember when doing this program, the ridiculous pumps that I would get, and it felt like my chest and arms were just going to explode. I'm not exaggerating. I put on a crazy amount of muscle, and I only did this program for about 2 months. That's right. It's hard to believe, but I only did it for 2 months. The results were just mind-blowing. So in today's video, I'm going to go into the details of the program and diet that I followed, the length of the program, as well as my recommendations. Enjoy. Now, the 10x10 program I followed was very similar to Vince Gironda's 10x10. And it's a lot similar than today's actual version, which is nowadays referred to as the German volume training method. Vince Gironda's 10x10 would have you training, namely the chest, back, deltoids, biceps, triceps, quads, and calves as an upper body and lower body split, with the upper body trained on one day and the legs trained the next, which is fine. However, the program I followed was less frequent in regards to training days, basically training every second day, with the chest and back trained on day 1, quads, hamstrings, calves, and abs trained on day 2, and arms and delts on day 3, with a rest day in between each training day, all the while though using the 10x10 system. The rest between sets was kept only at 45 to 60 seconds, and this is a real key, I would say, because you need to keep the intensity high. The point of keeping the intensity high and increasing the speed of the workout is a key, because if you look up some papers, sometimes a lot of people want to know the science behind all this. Well, if you look up the science behind why it's important to keep your rests, especially when you're trying to have hypertrophy happening, why it's important to keep rests short is that it stimulates growth hormone release, which is one of the real secrets, I would say. It's one of the secrets and one of the keys of this kind of program, and which is why it is also so successful at stimulating massive hypertrophy when done correctly. I remember Charles Poliquin, who passed away, so the late Charles Poliquin, the renowned trainer, used to use this program for weightlifters. And that is Olympic weightlifters that wish to go up a class before the Olympics. And it was no surprise, really, in the gym for these athletes to put on, without exaggeration, 5 to 10 kilos or 10 to 20 pounds of muscle in a matter of weeks. Yes, you could almost state that this program produces steroid-like effects. I don't like saying that, but people like putting a label on things. So I'm just basically saying what a lot of people would like to say. And you will get blamed. You will get accused for it, because the amount of muscle you can put on is rather staggering for the short amount of time you're on the program. And it's very similar. These effects are very, very similar to the 8x8 routine, which is also, of course, developed by Vince Gironda, who would have you perform the 10x10 and 8x8 prior to competition to maximize hypertrophy. Now, back to my program. I found the frequency of training I used great, because it was quite a lot of volume for me, and it allowed me to recover. You all have to remember that I performed this in 2017 when I was 39 years old, reaching almost 40. and this is after 2 major surgeries, after 2 freak accidents that had left me a cripple, basically, which I have already talked about in a separate video. So this is why I chose to decrease the frequency, because I'm much older than the person that might be trying this at 20 years of age, and I'm pretty much, I'm carrying my war wounds. I've got some scars. I've got a lot of scar tissue in my body from all this surgery, and that's why I decreased the frequency. Now, here is the specific program that I followed. The program itself was very simple as follows. I mean, you only have to choose one exercise per body part, and I already listed the body parts, and so you just basically go from there. So for day one, let's say it's on a Monday, I will train my chest using the bench press. Of course, on the 10 by 10, doing 10 sets of 10 repetitions. And again, remember, I've just finished recovering from a horrible surgery for my pectoral tendon, so I only used, I started off with 50 kilos, and over the weeks, by the end of the second month, I was using 70 kilos 10 by 10, so I was pretty happy with that. For the back, I was doing chin-ups for about 5 sets, and then lat pull-downs for 5 sets. So basically, at the time, I was weighing about 80 to 85 kilos. I would do 5 sets of 10 chin-ups like that, so just body weight, and then with exhaustion creeping in, I would do the last 5 sets of a supinated lat pull down to mimic the motion of the chin up, using 70 to 80 kilos, just dropping the weight slightly, so it was similar to my own body weight. I would have then a rest day, and the second day of my training program, which would be then on Wednesday, would be squats, the normal back squat, the barbell back squat, 10 by 10 using 60 to 80 kilos, and this range basically tells you what I started off with and then the weight that I finished off with at the end. So at the end of the program, I was using about 80 kilos for 10 by 10, which was all right. Then I would be doing leg curls for the hamstrings, 10 by 10 using 30 to 40 kilos. And for my calves, I'll be doing seated calf raises, only 3 sets of 10 repetitions. That's the only two exercises that I didn't actually train for using the 10 by 10 was my abdominals and my calves. So for abs, I would also be doing just 3 sets of 10 repetitions with my own body weight. I'd be doing Roman chair sit-ups. So that's day 2. I would have a rest day again on Thursday, and then on Friday have my last training day, which is day 3, where I would use the tricep bar, which allows for a neutral grip, and I would do hammer curls with that. 10 sets of 10 repetitions using 30 to 40 kilos. I would then finish off with tricep push downs on the cable machine, 10 by 10 using 70 to 80 kilos, and then go to the rear delts machine and perform 5 to 6 sets. That was I guess another body part that I didn't do the 10 by 10 because you get so much work already on your chest day doing bench press. You're already hitting the front deltoid. When you're doing chin-ups and lat pull down, you're already hitting your side and rear deltoids. So you get quite a lot of deltoid stimulation already. So I would only hit the rear delt machine for 5 sets of 8 to 10 repetitions. Now, I followed a very, very similar diet to Vince's advanced maintenance diet. It's actually called the maintenance diet in his book, The Wild Physique. And this excerpt, which I've got here as a print screen, was taken directly from my ebook, Vince's Diets, available on my website, www.goldenerabookworm.com. And basically, the advanced maintenance diet was the only diet that Vince recommended most bodybuilders stay on for prolonged periods of time. If there was any maintenance diet, from Vince, this was it, Vince's maintenance diet. This diet allows for gradual and steady weight gains because the diet has adequate and balanced amounts of proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. Yes, you heard right, carbohydrates. A lot of people think that Vince Gironda was against carbs, but this is not true. For bulking up, he actually recommended them, but that's another story. Basically, this diet has adequate amounts of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins for lean muscle gains. And so the diet basically requires you to eat a high protein, high fat breakfast, and the same thing for lunch and dinner, whilst having a protein drink that is high in protein, fat, and carbs due to the inclusion of honey and bananas. Now, the only major changes that I made from this diet when I undertook this diet was that instead of having bananas and honey in my protein drink, because nowadays, of course, protein drinks are flavored, and I didn't want to have such high glycemic carbohydrates, I would instead replace these carbs with a small serving of rice or potatoes with my lunch and dinner. So this would mean no carbs for breakfast. And I have to admit, it was a very tasty and satisfying diet. I really enjoyed it. I had no cravings at all because it was a very balanced diet. It's basically just like a basic silver era diet where you eat a lot of protein and you don't have to worry too much about your carbs and fats. You basically just eat for what your body really needs. It tells you what to eat. With the supplements, I only took the vitamins and minerals as well as the amino acids that were listed, but I didn't take digestives or kelp tablets or glandular extracts or products like that. I still made gains, as you've seen. I personally feel that the inclusion of kelp and glandulars and things like digestive aids like enzymes and HCl are very useful at a more advanced stage of bodybuilding, especially when preparing for competition, and you have to have maximum absorption of your nutrients and everything has to be optimized. Your endocrine system has to be optimized to optimize your recuperative abilities. But if you're just bulking up, you don't really need, I don't think, at least from my experience, I don't think you really need the kelp, the glandulars, and the digestive aids. I'm just building up my physique. I'm not looking to compete. And so I didn't necessarily need to take these supplements. So now onto my results. Well, as I said, I followed the program for 2 months, and I think I made some pretty amazing gains, at least amazing in my books. I had never put on so much muscle mass before. And I was very surprised at the effectiveness of this program. As I said, the pumps were ridiculous in the gym. Especially, I was surprised at the effectiveness of this program because it just appears to be so simple. And I can tell you though, it is grueling work. It appears simple on paper, but when you're doing it, it is tough. It is gonna wind you because you're only resting for 45 to 60 seconds. You're performing an incredible amount of volume. So I would say this is definitely not for the beginner. I would say you need to have a few years of lifting under your belt and a basic level of strength just to ensure that your joints can actually survive this kind of punishment and torture, believe me. Now, I'm not going to try and guess how much muscle I put on and how much fat I lost, because every time I do, people seem to have a cow over it. So instead, as I said earlier, these photos just say it all. Prior to this program, here's a good photo as an example. I used to powerlift, and I've shown images of myself before where I'm showing like this image here, where I'm showing a rather strong and athletic physique, where I was training for powerlifting and Olympic weightlifting, not bodybuilding at all. So I was stocky and strong looking, but not with the muscular shape that I was now sporting after the 10x10 routine. Of course, I suffered an accident at the end of 2016 after doing all this powerlifting and Olympic weightlifting, which prevented me from competing in powerlifting and Olympic weightlifting and really just destroyed my morale, my physique, etc. But after recovering towards the end of 2017 and regaining my joint and muscular strength, I felt my body was now prepared for hypertrophy. So I did this program for 2 months between November and December of 2017 and made some pretty amazing gains. The 10x10 is super effective in my own opinion, and I put on a lot of muscle, especially around the pecs and arms, as is very evident in this photo. And it was great, and I was really happy with my results. I really enjoyed my experience with the 10x10, and following Vince's maintenance diet was also, as I said, easy because it is pretty balanced and not as strict as some of his other diets. Now, just some recommendations and considerations. I would recommend this program to an experienced lifter, basically someone that's got some intermediate to advanced level of bodybuilding, as the volume, I believe, would be too great for a beginner, and especially their recuperative abilities would not allow them to do this program. Also, if you don't have a decent amount of strength, let's say you're a real novice and you can't even bench press more than 20 or 30 kilograms. Do you think doing 10 sets of 10 repetitions with an empty bar that's not going to give you much muscle. So I would say, again, you need to have, some years under your belt in regards to strength and some experience if you're going to try this program. It's not for beginners. I would also only follow this program for 2 months. When you look and hear the advice of Steve Reeves, who performed a very, very similar, almost identical routine, the 10 by 12, which I've done in a separate video, I've covered it. It was his Mr. Universe program. It's almost an identical routine. He only did this program. I've read his own personal commentary. He said he did for 1 month. Others, like John Grimmick, said he did it for 2 months. Whatever. At the most that Silver Era bodybuilders would perform this workout was for 2 months. Vince Gironda also recommended this program for only 2 months during the Golden Era. And later, in the 80s and 90s, Charles Poliquin, for his Olympic lifters, as I mentioned earlier, he would recommend this program only be followed for 6 to 8 weeks. So again, there's that, maximum of 2 months. That's the most I would recommend this as a duration for this program. In regards to frequency, well, I think it's up to you whether you wish to hit each body part twice a week, as Vince suggested, which would mean you'd be in the gym 4 days a week, or if you'd be doing what Charles Poliquin recommended, which is also what I did, and that is hitting each body part once a week, and therefore you'd be in the gym for 3 days a week. And I also think that this has a lot to do with things like your recuperative abilities and your age, your genetics, a lot of these things, right? How much you work, For example, myself, and I can only judge for myself because I've done it, and I can only talk from my own experience. I was, as I said, close to 40 when I tried this for the first time, and I recovered fine hitting each body part once a week. And if I would have done this program in my 20s, I probably would have tried out Vince Gironda's 10 by 10, hitting each body part twice a week. But again, I was 40, I had 2 major surgeries. So, I think I would have been pushing it and my recuperative abilities if I would have done Vince Gironda's method, which is why I chose to do Charles Poliquin's method. In regards to frequency is what I mean. I chose to only hit each body part once a week. Now, if you'd like to learn more about the 10 by 10, I highly recommend visiting my website, www.goldenerabookworm.com, where you're going to find a lot of Vince Gironda's booklets which talk about the 10 by 10. In particular, Definition. That's a great book where the 10 by 10 is introduced with Vince's exercises. It's an excellent booklet. Vince's Diets actually talks about the maintenance diet, which is a booklet that I came out with. The Wild Physique also talks about the maintenance diet, and as well as the 10 by 10. And of course, if you're interested in learning of Vince Gironda's other routines, there are heaps of routines that he's talked about. You're going to find a lot of these routines on the booklets that I sell on my website, and I highly recommend these 2 books, the Master Series and the Pro Series. Both are excellent books, which, as the name suggests, the Master Series is going to really give you, that classic physique. Really, it's a fantastic 14-month program that incorporates a lot of Vince's different diets, different routines. And the Pro Series, that's really for the more high-level bodybuilder who is competing. Another brilliant book. Hasn't been released out for a while. I'm one of the few that actually can sell it. The Pro Series is again excellent. It's an excellent, I believe it's almost a year's program. Each program is followed for 2 months. And yeah, it's basically pretty much the best stuff from Vince Gironda in the Pro Series for elite bodybuilders. All of these books are available on my website, www.goldenerabookworm.com. So I do hope you have enjoyed this video, and I will continue to make more videos like this as I continue to experiment with the old school routines that I'm learning from, and such as those from Vince Gironda and other bodybuilders. If you have enjoyed this video, please give the video a like and share and subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so. To support this channel, please become a patron where you have an access to a large bodybuilding library of photos, articles, and books. And I'm always uploading more and more material there. It's a great community. Enjoy while it's open. Please also visit my website for print books and courses. on Old School Bodybuilding. And to donate for my campaign to create a Golden Era Bodybuilding Museum, please do so via my campaign website. Please also get in touch via email if you have any queries or wish to collaborate or pass on your bodybuilding relics, etc. Just get in touch. That's it from me. This is the Golden Era Bookworm saying bye for now.
To take full advantage of my collaboration with Old School Labs, please visit their website and choose from their marvelous range of supplements using my code BOOKWORM12. And for an entertaining look at the history of bodybuilding's supplement industry, I would highly recommend watching Subs the Movie, which I have collaborated in, available at Amazon Prime and Vimeo.